This is my ranking of games like Hollow Knight Silksong that I played, based purely on my personal experience. Each game is placed from masterpiece down to trash, depending on how satisfying the combat and exploration feel, how strong the world and atmosphere are, and how well they kept me invested from beginning to end. Let's get straight into the list. Lone Fungus takes heavy inspiration from Hollow Knight, but it still has enough identity to avoid feeling like a simple copy. The movement is easily my favorite part because the game gives me many traversal abilities that make platforming and exploration feel smooth once everything opens up. Exploring the world stayed fun since the map is large, full of secrets, and rewards checking every corner for hidden upgrades. My biggest issue is that the game may add too many mechanics, because there are so many abilities and movement options that I struggled to remember every input during harder platforming sections. Some bosses were enjoyable, though not every fight felt memorable because of how many there are. Even with those flaws, I stayed engaged from beginning to end because the movement and exploration remained satisfying throughout, and this belongs in my great tier. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown instantly became one of my favorite modern metroidvanias because it delivers nearly everything I want from the genre at an extremely high level. The movement feels smooth, responsive, and satisfying, while the level design constantly pushes me to use my abilities in smart ways. Combat is just as strong, with fast pacing, flashy animations, and enough depth that every fight feels engaging whether I am facing normal enemies or bosses. The boss battles especially stand out because they feel cinematic while still demanding real skill and timing. I also loved how varied the world feels. Very few games manage to balance exploration, combat, and platforming this well at the same time, and this easily earns its place in my masterpiece tier. Haiku: The Robot is a solid action platformer that gave me a fun time, even if it does not reach the highs of the best games in this style. The robotic world has a lot of charm, and I liked how the art style gives the adventure personality despite its simple look. Exploration feels rewarding because I am always finding upgrades, hidden paths, and reasons to revisit older areas. The platforming feels smooth, movement stays responsive, and the gameplay remains enjoyable through most of the journey. My biggest issue is that the game can be too vague with where it wants me to go next, which led to moments of wandering longer than I wanted. Combat also gets repetitive since the moveset stays basic and never evolves much. Even with those flaws, I still had fun with it, and this goes in my great tier. GRIME stands out because it feels slower and more deliberate than most games in this style, and that approach made the combat feel unique once I adjusted to it. Instead of rushing through fights, the game pushes me to stay patient, learn enemy patterns, and use its parry system well, which makes battles more rewarding when I get it right. Exploration stayed engaging since I was always finding hidden paths, new weapons, and secrets worth chasing down. My only real issue is that getting back to certain bosses can sometimes be annoying before shortcuts open up. Still, the combat depth, atmosphere, and rewarding exploration all come together really well here, and this easily earns a place in my excellent tier. Aeterna Noctis gave me mixed feelings because while I enjoyed parts of it, several things kept it from reaching the next level. The biggest strength is easily the platforming because many movement challenges feel intense and satisfying when I finally get through them. The world is also large with plenty to explore, and I liked how often the game rewards me for checking hidden corners and optional paths. My biggest issue is that the difficulty can sometimes feel more frustrating than fun since certain sections lean into being overly punishing instead of naturally challenging. Combat never fully clicked with me either because many encounters felt basic and some progression systems were not as interesting as I hoped. Even with those flaws, I still found enough enjoyment in the exploration and platforming to stay invested, and this fits into my great tier. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is one of those rare sequels that improves on almost everything and delivers an experience I enjoyed from start to finish. The movement feels incredibly smooth, and once more abilities unlock, traveling through the world becomes satisfying because everything flows together naturally. The platforming is excellent, giving me creative challenges that feel rewarding without becoming unfair. Combat is also much better than before, with more depth and variety that keeps encounters engaging throughout the adventure. What pushes it higher, though, is the presentation, because the visuals, soundtrack, and emotional story all come together beautifully and make many moments memorable. The world is packed with secrets and optional content, which made exploration rewarding the whole way through. Very few games blend gameplay, atmosphere, and emotion this well, and this easily belongs in my masterpiece tier. Memories in Orbit is a good experience that does many things well, even if it never fully stood out compared to stronger games in this style. The movement feels smooth and responsive, and I liked how traversal kept improving as more abilities unlocked throughout the adventure. Exploration stayed enjoyable because the map is interconnected, full of secrets, and gives me reasons to revisit older areas after gaining upgrades. Visually, the game also looks great, with a unique art style that makes the world feel distinct and memorable. My biggest issue is that, while everything is polished, not much truly grabbed me in a major way, and I never felt deeply invested in the story or characters. The gameplay remains fun, but it lacked the extra spark needed to push it higher. Still, I had a solid time with it, and I'd put it in my good tier. Blasphemous I and II are some of the most memorable games I have played in this style because almost nothing else looks or feels like them. The dark religious world, disturbing enemy designs, and grotesque boss fights give both games an atmosphere that stayed with me long after playing. I also love the detailed pixel art because every area and animation is packed with style and makes the world feel unique. Combat feels satisfying, especially once I got used to dodging, parrying, and learning enemy patterns. The sequel improves things further by adding better movement and more variety, which made it even harder for me to stop playing. Both games also reward exploration with secrets, upgrades, and hidden paths that kept me engaged throughout. Together, they easily deserve a spot in my masterpiece tier. Nine Souls quickly stood out to me because it mixes fast combat with a unique style that makes the whole experience feel different from most games in this genre. The combat is the highlight, since every fight pushes me to stay focused, learn attack patterns, and use the parry system well if I want to succeed. Once everything clicks, battles become satisfying and make every victory feel earned. I also love the world and art direction because the mix of sci-fi and mythology gives the game a distinct identity, and nearly every area looks fantastic. Exploration stayed rewarding too, with enough secrets and upgrades to keep me checking every corner. My main issue is that the map can feel awkward to use, and some moments get visually busy during combat. Still, the gameplay and style carry it easily, and I would put it in my excellent tier. Path of the Teal Lotus had some things I liked, but it never fully came together in a way that made me care much by the end. The best part is definitely the movement, because bouncing between enemies and chaining jumps through the air feels smooth and satisfying when everything works. The art style is also beautiful, with colorful visuals that make the game stand out immediately. My problem is that outside of those strengths, not much else grabbed me in a major way. The story felt forgettable, and while combat was decent enough, it never became especially exciting or memorable. Some difficulty spikes also felt more frustrating than fun, especially later on. I can see why others may enjoy it more, but personally it never rose above being just alright, so this lands in my mediocre tier. That wraps up my ranking of games like Hollow Knight Silksong I've personally played and how much each one clicked with me overall. Feel free to share your own rankings below and let me know if there are any other similar titles worth adding to my backlog. Thanks for watching.